Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Big Lee's World podcast. It is I, your host, Big Lee, coming to you once again back from the Boom Boom Room right here in Cave Girardeau, Missouri. I know that it's been a while since we've done one of these. Those of you that do know from within my inner circle here, life's been kind of crazy the past few months, and I've just had to take some time to adjust to it and one of the things which is going to be the topic of our episode tonight is over the summer I lost one of my best friends, Johnny Thurman. You've been a long time fan of the podcast. You've heard our episode, and if you've known me personally, you know we've been friends for a very long time. And unfortunately, he was taken away from us much too soon. So I've just been kind of mentally dealing with that the past few months, trying to cope, and I guess just kind of get back in the motion of things. I've known Johnny for God. I was trying to think how long it's been since before this podcast. I mean, it's been years. What, maybe 2009, maybe 2010, I think. So it's been 12, 13 years maybe, depending on how the math works out on that. And it's just kind of crazy to think that, in a moment, like, life is just gone from you. And you can lose someone that's that close to you. And I don't even really know, honestly, how to put all this into words. But, yeah, just kind of looking back, I mean, we became friends when I was in college, back in my more wild days, when we used to go downtown and see bands play, and back when Cape really had a much stronger local music scene than what they do now. I will say on a side note that it seems like the Cape music scene is trying to get a little bit better with, bands like the Scatterguns and Flight Jacket and things of that nature. So, I think we're going on the right path here. But anyways, before I get sidetracked here, I met Thurman when he was, I guess you would say he was selling the merch for a local band called Thorlock. If you don't know what Thorlock is like a doom metal band that was from here in the Cape area. And they would play, they did a lot of shows in St. Louis, and then they would do shows here in Cape. And it's definitely something different than most of the bands that would play in the Cape area local scene. And you could definitely tell it brought out a different type of crowd versus some of the other local bands that would play the bars on a weekend. So I remember meeting him at, it's Hot Shots now, but it used to be called Breakaways. And those of us that were outside the pseudo-frat college party life, I guess you could say, we pretty well all hung out at Breakaways. And at one of the Thorlock shows, I went up and got a t-shirt and struck up a conversation with Thurman. Like, if any of y'all know that I talk just about anybody and conversate with them. And when I met Thurman, I met my match, literally, because I could talk to anybody and so could he. And our friendship just struck up from there. And, anytime we would see each other downtown at shows and stuff like that, we would always converse. Things of that nature. And then I moved away. I moved back to down south, I would say. I lived in Sykeston for a little bit. We're looking maybe 2012, I think. 2012, 2013. Somewhere around there. I'm terrible with these dates. But anyways, I had moved down there, and we still stayed friends and stuff like that. We stayed in contact, and he was originally from the Charleston, Wyatt area. So, he would come around the area, things of that nature. And also we would hang out. We went, how do I say this? We went to Memphis one time. This was one of our first really big endeavors that we went hanging out, traveling out of state together. And I'll never forget, we went to Memphis. There used to be a venue on Bill Street called the New Daisy Theater, and we went and seen the band Amir and Born of Osiris. Now, later in life, you knew us, it'd probably get hard pressed for either of us to go to the Amir Born of Osiris lineup, but it was a different time back then. So, anyways, we went down there. We had a blast. We almost died that night. I'll never forget that. So, he wanted crystals after the show. For those of you that don't know, crystals is kind of like a southern White Castle. And all with the onions and all that stuff on it. To me, it's just like White Castle. It's a belly bomber, but some people prefer it more than White Castle, and some people think it's a delicacy. I don't get it, but hey. We went there in Memphis after the Amir show, and I'll never forget, we're literally sitting in the drive-thru at Crystal's, waiting to get our food, and some dude literally tries to walk up to the car window, and the person working the window sees this guy walking up to the car, and just in a true southern accent, you hear him out the window, the worker yelling, "Go on now, get." And, and it basically ran off the homeless person there, or whatever their intent was. So we get up there, and of course, like I said, it's after the show, it's late, so the Crystal's drive-thru is pretty packed. So they have us pull over to a spot and park. Well, we're sitting there in the car, and next thing you know, there comes this homeless guy back again, trying to get closer and closer to the car. And I remember looking at him and telling him, I'm like, dude, this can't be good. Like, why are they not, like, out here, like, making sure there's nobody, like, trying to approach the vehicles? And we were just like, this isn't going to be good at all for us. So, luckily, as they were approaching the vehicle, they were bringing our food. And next thing you know, here comes one of the workers about to chase them off away from our vehicle and bring us our food. So, I don't know why that memory just sticks with me, but it's still one of the oddest but most funny memories I could think of our first endeavor down to Tennessee. So, like I said, we had some pretty crazy times. And then, of course, you know, he got involved with a tattoo shop down there in Sykeston. And so he started spending a lot more time down there, which was cool because for me, like I said, I lived down there part of the time, and still I was down there quite often, so it gave us a lot of time to hang out, get lunch, things of that nature. So it was a cool time. Then I moved back to Cape. He still lived in Cape and worked in Sykeston, and so that gave us still plenty of time to hang out, stuff like that. End up in weird endeavors, adventures. Like one time, God. So one time, we all met up. Me, him, his wife Danielle, and my friend Jana. We all met up in Nashville to go see Juicy J of 3-6 Mafia. It was Juicy J, Travis Scott, and Project Pat at the Marathon Music Works. And I'll tell you what, that was an endeavor and a half. We get up there, we all link up and everything, talk for a little bit, walk around. Then we see the fights break out in the crowd when Juicy J throws his shoes out in the crowd. Yeah, he literally took a shoe off and threw it to each side of the crowd. And, of course, fights broke out over that and him throwing champagne all over the crowd. And I remember Thurman come up to me the next day at breakfast and asked me, he was like, "Yeah, I thought that was you up there trying to get that free champagne." Man, that was an endeavor and a half. And then I remember the next day we all went and ate at the Nashville Biscuit House. I wonder if that place is still there. I remember the food was really good, and we all had a good time laughing, cutting up, and Thurman wanting to. So there's like a map there, and you pin wherever you came from on that map. So like if we came from Cape, you'd put like the little push pin in Cape, and of course, being 3.5 hours from Nashville, there's a lot of people that's been there from Southeast Missouri, and I'll remember like telling him, I was like, "Dude, you don't need to put a pin there. There's already a bunch of pins in the area." And he was so determined to put a pin there, and I just thought it was like the funniest thing because I was like, man, he is super determined about putting that pin there. So, man, he was excited to put that pin on that map. Oh man, but yeah, we had a lot of good times back then. Of course, we still hung out, stuff like that. I'm trying to think here, like, what's the best stories to tell? Like I said, this is one of those things. It's something I've been wanting to do for a long time. Just kind of reflect back. I feel bad that it took so long to do one of these, but I just wanted to be in the right headspace to record one of these episodes talking about our experiences and remembering the times we had hanging out with one another. And that was the thing, like, he was a big supporter of the podcast. I mean, I remember when I told him I was starting this, like, he was gun-ho for it, and he was so excited to do the podcast, and he wanted to come back and do another episode, and we just never got the scheduling worked out right, just for everything else that was going on. Still, he would promote the brand, like that. I get on a side note here, stories. Thurman would support and be willing to do whatever to help me promote any project I was a part of. Like, I remember when we did our first CCW show in Sykeston. Well, I guess technically the only CCW show we did in Sykeston. And we held a meet and greet down there at the tattoo shop that he worked at. And he was so excited to have wrestling in Sykeston, and he was so excited to have the meet and greet there. And he was so excited to help out, help promote anything that I did. He would always help promote, help advertise the wrestling, tell anybody and everybody he could about it. And it was not just with the CCW. Like, even when I started with the Anna Fight Underground over in Anna, Illinois, I mean, he was over there for the shows when he could get off work in time. He would advertise, he would tell literally anybody and everybody. Even when we go out and eat or something like that, he would tell anybody that he would see with a wrestling shirt or wrestling tattoo, and he would make sure that he would tell them that whichever company I was primarily working for at the time, whether it be CCW or the Anna Fight Underground, AFU Hardcore, that, hey, there's this guy here at the table, his name's Big Lee, he's a part of whichever company I'm, working at that time, and he's like, hey man, you gotta check his show out, stuff like that. So, and honestly, what's also pretty cool is the fact that he was the very first person to buy a Big Lee's World t-shirt from BigLee'sWorld.com. And, dude, like, I remember he was so happy when he got that shirt. And when he surprised me at one of the first AFU shows with that shirt, like, he was so happy just to advertise the brand. And it warmed my heart. Like, I was like, dude, there's not too many real people left in this world. And Thurman was one of the realest. And I tell people, like, you want real people by your side. When I talk about, previous episodes about my inner circle and keeping your inner circle small. Like, my general, my right hand man, like, that was Thurman. Like, he was down for the cause, whatever it was, you know, I could hit him up if I was like, hey, let's go do this, He'd be like, okay, I'm free, I'm down. I'd be like, hey, I want to work on this project. He's like, hey, I support it, get it out there. I will help you advertise, do whatever, help you promote it. Um, Man, like, I remember one time, kind of skipping ahead of the timeline here. No surprise I can't keep a story in order. But anyways, I remember during, this was peak pandemic COVID. So early, well, I guess not technically early, maybe mid 2020. We wanted to get breakfast one day. And of course, all the restaurants' insides are closed. So what do? We literally go to Hardee's, order our food, park our cars like beside each other, but turned opposite directions so we could still sit there and be in our cars, have our distance, and be able to face talk to one another. And we sat out there for like almost 2 hours having breakfast and just shooting the bull. And you're not going to get many people out there that's willing to do that with you. I mean, I look back at the countless endeavors that we had at going to Cracker Barrel and Buffalo Wild Wings. Man, so Cracker Barrel, Buffalo Wild Wings, we would go there and have wings and stuff like that. But when it really went down at the Cracker Barrel. And you have to understand that when I say it went down at the Cracker Barrel, I mean it went down at the Cracker Barrel. Not only did we throw down on the food there, it was always like, it was I should say a process. Like, there was kind of a routine. Like, when we go in there, we would go on the weekend, so of course we're going to have to wait on a table. So as we're waiting on the table, we would walk through the gift shop. Now, you got to remember, if you know Johnny Thurman, he is a little shorter guy, covered in tattoos. So, what's going to make you look more quote-unquote suspicious of a person in a Cracker Barrel than being there with a giant 6-foot death metal wearing, dressed in all black, baggy shorts, hat, sunglasses, or all black face mask, walking around beside the guy covered in all tattoos. So, needless to say, we had quite a bit of onlookers at us whenever we would go there. But he would always make sure whenever he would go there, he would look around, he would see things that, like, he would think that, he would pick up as a gift for his wife or his kid. And he was always thinking about others. Even, when he's going there, he's looking for things. He always wanted to help anybody that he could. And, like I said, you don't find many people like that in the world today. And it's, he was one of the few good people out there in this world. So, we go sit down to eat. Now, like I said, you've now got the guy covered in tattoos, and you've got the big scary monster looking dude sitting there at the table. Discussing life, discussing the tattoo business, making travel plans, discussing wrestling, and discussing music. So, as you can imagine, we're two guys sitting in the Cracker Barrel, talking about who's better, Cannibal Corpse or Dying Fetus, while being surrounded the table with a bunch of, like, old people and conservative Christians who are just kind of giving us the death glare at this point. But we didn't care. We enjoyed it. Honestly, I think besides just hanging out, catching up, having some good food, we really just enjoyed making the people there, the closed-minded people, uncomfortable. One of the things that would always pop us is, a few years back, the local strip club brought in Stormy Daniels. If you don't know the backstory of Stormy Daniels, she's basically like a porn star that had sex with Donald Trump, and there's some whole legality issues. And anyways, so the local strip club printed these "Make America Great Again" hats and gave out, but they would say "Make America Great Again" at the Pony Club. So when people see it, they think it's a Trump hat, but then when they get close on it, they see it's a hat that's making a mockery of it and advertising a strip club. So I would like to wear it whenever we would go out and eat, and we would see how many of the old people we could get, or the conservative Christians who see it and come up and want to comment and not actually read the hat. And I remember one time this old lady, she came up to us while we were standing in line waiting to pay, and she looked at me and she said, "I'm glad to see the youth of the day knows the right way to vote." And before I could even respond, I look over at Thurman and he's just cracking up laughing, because he knows that that lady did not see the whole part about the strip club at the bottom of the hat. And I just look over and he's laughing, and I said, "Well, that's right. I do like to vote to help support the strip clubs." And he just starts cracking up. And before I could even respond again, he yells out, he's like, "You need to read the bottom of the hat." And she reads the bottom of the hat where it says about the strip club. And she got mad and just walked away. Oh, she was irate. Man, her face turned about as red as that hat was. But man, whew, we always had fun at the Cracker Barrel. Like I said, I think half of it was the good food and conversation, and the other half was just making the people around us uncomfortable. But as far as making people uncomfortable, we would do that wherever we went. Just for if you knew all of us together, me and him, and then later on with his brother Josh, we would have a group text message of or group Facebook message of who can post what to get the other one to cringe first. And I was just saying, that text message chain, we all came to play. There's no cringing, there's nothing off limits, and we just had a blast, and that's just who we were and what we did. And whenever we would go out in public together, we would continue stuff like that whenever we were out. Now, we would be a little bit more tamed if other people were with us, but if it was just us two out, no. I remember, oh man, I remember the last time we went to the movies together. We went and seen Jackass Forever. And we were sitting there at the table where they have the food and drinks and everything, and just laughing and cutting up. And I remember trying to convince the waiter person that you better be careful, because he either may be trying to rob you, or I may be trying to be a shooter here. And he cracked up laughing. He's like, "Dude, you're going to get us thrown out of here before the movie even starts." And the worker there laughed, because he had already talked to us earlier in the day and realized that we may or may not have been a couple screws loose there. But that's just what we would do. We would find people at whatever places we were at, and we would vibe, and we would tell them how rough we are, and we would just go back and forth at it. And I think if we found the right people we were around at that time, I think it got, not only did it just pop us or make us laugh, it made other people laugh too. And in this day and age, the world's a pretty rough place, and if you can make anybody laugh or make a little bit of brightness in their day, it's well worth it. For the people that you make uncomfortable, if you can make somebody happy, then I think you're doing good. I think the good outweighs the bad. But one of our favorite trips we went on, and this one's a little tough for me, Because I remember one of the remarks I made during this trip, and unfortunately, it didn't happen the way that I wanted it to end up going. So, this was, I guess, 5 years ago. It was my birthday time. It was in December. And me and him took a train to Chicago to go see Hatebreed, Dying Fetus, Code Orange, and Twitching Tongues. Those of y'all listening to this may be like, I have no idea what any of those bands are. It's okay. It's just a bunch of metal hardcore bands. And, we were both big fans of. And there, in the band Twitching Tongues, there was a guy. His name was Sean. And he used to play in Hatebreed. He played in Twitching Tongues. But he was apparently really big in the tattoo world. And I didn't really know much about the guy, but Thurman being a tattoo artist, like, he was really big on the see Sean there. And I'm like, okay, cool. Like, I want to see the bands. Like, I love Hatebreed. I love Dying Fetus. And I love Code Orange. So, I'm game. So, we take the train to Chicago. We get to Union Station. It's Christmas time. And get all these nice, great pictures at Union Station where all the Christmas decorations and stuff is. So, we go take the pictures, walk around, things of that nature, get checked into the hotel, get to go to the Pro Wrestling Tees store. So, being a wrestling fan, those of you listening to this that come from the wrestling side of the projects that I do, Pro Wrestling Tees is pretty well, like, the number one source of where any non-WWE wrestling shirts come from. Their main office is in Chicago, and before the pandemic, they used to have a storefront to where you can go in, get the t-shirts, the main big selling t-shirts there in person. So, like your Bullet Club shirts, I'm trying to think, CM Punk, Raven, like the big stars of indie wrestling and non-WWE, you could go get the shirts there. And if they had something there that you wanted, they didn't have in your size, or it was on the website, since it is a t-shirt printing company, you could order it and they would have it ready in like an hour. So I wanted to check this out. And Thurman goes with me there. And so he gets to go in there and he gets to see the store, and he's kind of like I don't say starstruck, like, it's kind of like, wow, like, there's all this different wrestling stuff in here. So he got to see that, see the shirt plate, printing place, stuff like that. Like, it was a pretty cool experience. So then, we travel a little bit around Chicago, stuff like that. We meet up with some of his friends, and we go to the show. So the show gets out, and it's still one of the funniest experiences. So you gotta remember, this is in, like, December. So I want to say it's like December 2017. And this is at the Metro. And like I said, big old death metal show, hardcore show. You walk out of the Metro, and there's just like steam coming out the door because it's cold outside at Chicago, and it's all warm and hot of all these bodies coming out. So they literally like open the door, and you walk out. And if you want to talk about like, I don't know what the best way to explain it is, like, polar opposites meeting. Like, you look over, and there's apparently, like, a drag bar a couple doors down, and they were getting ready to let people in, so the line was backed out in front of the Metro. Well, this door opens, and they walk out, and you walk into this giant line of drag queens, and then they look over, and they see a bunch of sweaty folks with Hatebreed and Dying Fetus shirts, just like a clash of culture almost, of like everyone's looking like, wait, what's going on? So, anyways, we go through there and start walking around to the side because I see the vocalist of Code Orange. And I'm like, hey, that's a dude from Code Orange. I want to see if I can get a picture with him. So I go over, and talk to him, get a picture, stuff like that. I'm getting ready to walk back over, and I see Thurman, and I'm like, "What's up, dude?" And he's like, "Man, there's Sean." And I was like, "Cool." He's like, "I want to go say hi." I'm like, "Cool, go say hi." So he goes, says hi, and shakes his hand, says how big fan he is of tattoo work and stuff like that. So Sean talks to him, walks off, and I was like, "Dude, you didn't want a picture with him or anything?" He's like, "Man, no, he's too busy. He's too busy." I was like, "You sure?" He's like, "Yeah." So we go across the street. Across the street is like a hot dog stand. Anyways, we go in there. There's like a little sit down spot. So we sit there. It's Pat, but we got a table that's pretty close to the window. Anyways, you can look out the window and you can still see the bands loading in, and he sees Sean still over, and he was like, "Man, maybe I should have got a picture with him." And I was like, "Dude, we can go over and take a picture with him. Like, it's no big deal. Like, we just take an Uber." It's like, we're taking an Uber back to the hotel anyway, so, and the Uber's run 24 hours, so we're good. We can go over. And he's like, "No, man, I don't want to bother him." I was like, "Dude, we really can." He's like, No, I don't want to bother him." So, anyways, so we ended up eating and getting in the Uber and going back to the hotel. And we were talking on the next morning, get up, take the train back. We were talking, and I was like, "Well, man," because it was like what is it? 15 year, the 15 years of satisfaction and death of desire tour. I think it was that. Anyways, I was like, "Well, whenever they do a 20-year tour, I guess we're going to have to go to it again and make it our tradition these every 5 years." And he was like, "Dude, I'm down." Well, those of you that know, Thurman passed in July, and that 20-year tour came up in November, so last month when we're recording this. And needless to say, he wasn't necessarily, he didn't get to go. And I thought about that the entire time way up there, and during the show I was like, "Man, I really miss dude. Like, this was supposed to be our new tradition whenever these 5-year tours happen like this. We were going to go back and make an endeavor of it, and, you're no longer here, and it just really kind of makes you think, like, and tomorrow really is promised to no one." And, yeah, I think about it. I think about it all the time. I'm like, man, why did this have to happen? So, but yeah, like I said, we had a lot of great times together. We got to see a lot of great shows, introduce each other to a lot of great bands. One of the fun things that people don't know, it was actually Thurman that really helped me progress from radio rock and getting into hardcore music. So before I met Thurman, it was primarily I either listened to radio rock or metalcore. And he introduced me to bands like Terror and Hatebreed. So that kind of changed my whole trajectory, in the style of music and then kind of the outlook on life. But honestly, I have to say that after meeting Thurman and us becoming really good friends, like, he just really kind of changed my outlook on a lot of things in life. Like, I often sit back and wonder, like, I look at things and I think, okay, what would have happened if I hadn't went to go get that T-shirt that night at that Thorlock show? Like, how would life be different? Because he had such a positive effect on my life, and I would like to think that I had some sort of a positive outlook or a positive effect on his life. Although, you know, he was doing pretty well. You know, I felt honored that somebody like him, a great positive spirit who wanted to do good with people and wanted to, what's the best way to say this? Make the world a better place. He would be willing to be friends with someone like me who literally is almost like the bipolar opposite of him. Like, I don't have that reputation of being a overly friendly person. Like, I'm good with those that know me and are that good with me in that circle. And in a business aspect, I know how to converse and be friendly with people in a business aspect. But outside of that, like, personally, like, I'm not a, what's the best way to say this? I'm not that overly friendly and outgoing of a person outside of my inner circle versus Thurman, who knew like everyone and everyone had great things to say about him, and he was a great person to be around and have in your life. And I'm honored and blessed that time that he had on earth, he was willing to be my friend. More than a friend, a brother. Like, I remember one time he was at a show and my mom was there. He met her, and then it was like he always asked about her ever since then. Anytime they would see each other at a show, he would always make it an effort at a wrestling show to go up and speak to her, make sure she's okay. If I'm not around to kind of keep eye on things, because those of you that know I'm very overprotective of my mom. If I'm not available, if I'm handling something at a show, he was there to make sure that everything, like, she was taken care of, nothing crazy happened, if she needed anything. Like, he was a good dude. He was a brother. I grew up, I didn't have a brother. Thurman was the closest thing to me to having a brother. And, like I said, he's been gone now for a few months. And it really, honestly, like, I was ready to be done with this. Like, done with the podcast and done with a lot of things. But I knew that he loved the podcast. And I knew that this was something that he thought was great. And I wanted to make sure that I gave him the proper respect. And I wanted to make sure that just a few of the experiences I got to share with him, that other people could get to hear and vicariously experience those times that we shared together. And hopefully you can find somebody in your life that you consider family, that you could have those experiences with. So, one of the things that I do think about there, a couple of things to kind of wrap this all up here. Because, like I said, I've got stories and experiences. Not all of them are really going to be podcast appropriate, or stories that are just gonna stay with those involved. That were some good crazy times we had. But two things to really wrap it up. One, well, actually three things. whenever he passed, I remember going through these memories and pictures and stuff like that and adventures we did. And oddly enough, of all the years we were friends, I could only find one picture of us together. And that was us at the theater. Why that is, I have no idea. And that has settled my mind. I never thought about it before, I guess. I guess I never really had a reason to think about it. Like, we would always have so much fun together. It just amazed me that we didn't have more photos together. Like, I look at all the photos we've taken, like, throughout the years of adventures we went on. But besides that one, that was the only picture we had of us together. And that just still blows my mind. And, that makes me think, make sure, this is a reminder, like, tomorrow is never promised to anyone. Take those pictures. Take those videos. Make those memories. Because you may not get that chance tomorrow or the next day. Savor the moment. Make memories. Like, and it still just amazes me. One of the other things is, and what was crazy to me, is I remember going to his memorial. He was cremated, and they had a memorial for him in Charleston at the funeral home. I have never been to a funeral home so packed, full of people in my life. It was on a Sunday afternoon in Charleston, Missouri. I honestly didn't expect many people to be there. Just to be honest, like, I didn't. So, I get there, like, right before it's supposed to start. That parking lot, street parking, is all packed. The line is wrapped around the building. And when I say wrapped around, I mean it is wrapped around, wrapped inside the building, coiled up in the building. Like, it's just crazy to me, like, how many people were there. And that shows you how good of a dude Thurman was and how he affected everyone that he met. Like, it was definitely a mixture of characters there for sure. And, I remember seeing Eric from Flight Jacket there in line and talking to him, and I was like, man, just looking around, this is quite the odd cast of characters. But if anybody could, bring all different types of people together, it was Johnny Thurman. And, man, I look at what he's done. The effect that he's had on people. And there's this tag going around that's like Johnny T Forever. And, I think that's true to this day. I think forever, like, you're going to see his footprint or his handprint on so many different things in the area. And you're always going to have those memories when you see these things tied with him. And I think that, it's awesome that somebody could have that kind of positive effect on so many people. And probably lastly, this one's a tough one to me. This would be probably the last time I really talked with Thurman. Well, messaged with Thurman, I should say. And I'll never forget. It would have been it was a Saturday, July 2nd, shortly about a week before he passed away. And I remember it was the Acacia Strain, one of our mutual favorite bands, playing at Pops. And I know I hadn't heard anything about him going. So I sent him a message. I said, hey, are you going to this? Where are you at? And he said, I was planning on it, but somebody that was going to go with me couldn't make it, so he's going to stay at home. So, I gave him a hard time. I'm like, well, I'm in Perryville. You should have said something sooner and you could roll with me. And he messaged back and he said, man, it's all good. Next time, I love you, bro. And I remember responding back. I was like, it's all good, man. Much love, bro. I never thought that, 5-6 days later, that would be the end. Like, there'd be no more messages. There's no more concerts. There's no more wrestling trips. There's no more Cracker Barrel adventures. There's no more theater adventures. No more Buffalo Wild Wings adventures. No crazy Hardee's breakfast endeavors in the car. And the two cars, parked beside each other. It all just seemed to come to an end all of a sudden. And it's still crazy to me that, the last thing that will stick to me that he told me was that, I love you, bro. And like I said, I'm not a very affectionate person. Most likely, if someone outside of my mom will say, I love you, anyone else will get the response back from me much love. I'm just not, an affectionate person. And anytime, Thurman would, we would finish up the show or whatever we were doing and we're getting ready to leave, he'd always come up and give me a hug, say, I love you, bro. And I'd always say, much love. And I never really thought that at that particular moment at the gas station in Perryville on the way to the Casey String show was going to be the last full actual conversation I was going to have with the closest person I would consider to be a brother of mine. So, like I said, I've been wanting to do this for a while. I know it's took a while for me to pick the mic back up and kind of say what I've been thinking. So, I don't, like I said, life's been crazy the past few months. This was probably one of the biggest things that's just kind of blown my mind. At the beginning of 2022, I never would have suspected that ending 2022, one of the people that I considered a brother to me would no longer be here. As I'm recording this, it's a couple days before Christmas. We would usually have met up somewhere, either Burger King or Cracker Barrel, and been hey, kind of reflect on the year, reflect on, what we've done, make plans for the next year. What crazy concert that we're going to find 100 concerts and may make it to 3. But be so excited for about what's coming up, what plans that, we're going to work on, or, what crazy idea we could have that we could see about make it possible. And now it's the end of 2022, and it's quite a weird feeling. I don't know how many times I've seen a concert announcement and went to go send him the message, send him the flyer, and I'm wait, no. Or how many times I've heard like a great joke or a funny meme, and I'm like, all right, I'm gonna send this to Thurman. Oh no. Or, oh man, did you hear this musician did this? I'll get ready to send it to Thurman, and I'm like, no. And I'm just like, each time, like it's one of those things I don't want to think about, so it just slips my mind. And then when you're like, hey, I want to, oh hey, this person, and they're gone, and you're like, man, what I would give for like one more day, one more Cracker Barrel, one more concert, one more movie, one more hug. So, as we finish this up, just remember, tomorrow is promised to no one. Take those pictures, spend time, spend memories. You can make the money back. You can't make time back. Remember that. With that being said, I don't even, I don't even really know how to end this. Just know, like I said, cherish the time you have left. Cherish those that you're close to. Make sure you hug the ones that you're close to. Tell them that you love them. And appreciate them for what all they do for you. And the positive effects they can have on your life. With that being said, Thurman, I love you, brother. I miss you. I know you're having a fun time up there. And I know you're probably laughing at me trying to record this and not break down emotionally. So, like I said, I love you, brother. To y'all listening, thanks for listening to me get this all off my chest. And until next time, much love. Thanks for the support. And I know he's laughed every time he would hear me say this. And I know in the heaven above, he's probably about to laugh now. But as always, 2 scoops of whoop, whoop, whoop.